Welcome. We're going to talk about Monday Night Raw, even though I don't want to because nothing much happened. But we are going to discuss this guy who appeared on Monday Night Raw. I'm not really a big Brad Shepard guy, but I'm going to give Brad Shepard some credit because he brought to my attention that this fellow, who I didn't know, his name is Tom Segura. Apparently he's a podcaster and a comedian. He does something with Netflix. I don't know. And apparently he was on Raw, and he had dissed WWE before, dissed pro wrestling before. So we're going to go through that, and then we're going to go through Raw, and then we're also going to talk about Vince Russo and some comments that he made. I have to make this thing interesting for me. I'm sorry. You guys want to talk about a blow-by-blow of a really boring show, that's fine. But I want to also discuss some things that might be fun for me. So apparently this Tom Segura fellow says, so many guys that love wrestling, I think wrestling is for fucking retards, but so many people like it. It's the stupidest shit. And I think you're the stupidest fucking tool if you're like, hey man, it's not fake. It's fucking fake, and you're a fucking idiot. They're not real fights. These are just stunt people. And the fact that guys are like, man, did you see the Undertaker reactions? I'm like, what? He was on a podcast and he was talking to some female. And the female's boyfriend or whatever, a date, had taken her to a wrestling show. And she actually had fun at the show. And he obviously couldn't believe this. But this guy was skinning and grinning on Monday Night Raw with the War Raiders. I couldn't pick him out of a lineup. But it's clear that he was there, and so many other people are posting the video now of this guy. Now, I do remember this comment when it was made at the time. It was about 2 years ago. Now, this story didn't really stop there. He said that he had talked to AEW about doing some things, but, well, he couldn't get any traction. So he says, yeah, I said stuff that wasn't nice. I was actually talking to the people at AEW. I was talking to them. That's the people that own the Jags, right? That's who I was talking to for a minute. It just kind of didn't evolve. He says, I didn't say anything crazy. I said wrestling is for retards. So apparently this was 5 years ago, my bad. And an outpouring of wrestlers with their feelings, like Dolph Ziggler and others, were very mad at this guy. I don't remember what I was thinking at the time he said it. I don't really care what these comedians think. The issue sometimes is, and I hate to put it in this language, but they get a sense of punching up and punching down, right? And what I mean by this is that pro wrestling is often depicted in modern day, since the 80s at least, as being for children. That's one thing. But also being for the lower intellectual class, middle America, the South, this kind of thing. And if you look at it from a class perspective, this guy who is some Hollywood dork, he's probably on the ass end of Hollywood, probably a barely famous kind of guy, doesn't really respect an art form that comes from and is heralded by people of lower income groups who sometimes are lower intellectually. And those people might enjoy pro wrestling. Now, all sorts of people enjoy wrestling. We know this. Musicians, rappers, all sorts of artists. There have been people who love movies and stuff like that who still love pro wrestling. Rick Rubin, the great music producer, is a big wrestling fan, had actually funded a wrestling promotion. You already know the guy from Smashing Pumpkins. He owns a wrestling promotion. So we know that there's top level celebrities that have been involved with pro wrestling. But the stigma of where pro wrestling really appeals to has always stuck, especially when it comes to these coastal elites. So when I look at what a coastal elite, and I'm just going to assume he lives in California, because I'm just going to just guess that he, especially if he's working for Netflix, that he at some point lives in California or New York, one or the other. And these two areas, they seem to breed the most pretentious, shit-eating people on planet Earth. Therefore, I don't give a fuck what these people think. Now, Brad Shepard hilariously called it a humiliation ritual that he has to sort of eat crow and do whatever it is he was doing on Monday Night Raw. I think he was slapping chests with the Viking Raiders. If that was that him? Because he was like some fat hairy guy was on the show, and I'm guessing that was him. And I thought it was funny. Like, yeah, at some point, what you say comes back around. Like that karma is a motherfucker, isn't it? You're forced to do stuff with all the rest of us fucking retards. Now you have to go out there and pretend you're one of the many fucking retards who enjoys wrestling because it's probably more popular than whatever the fuck you're doing on Netflix. I don't even know this guy. Like, he might as well be Larry the Cable Guy as far as I know. He's just one of the random white people with podcasts that I see on television and such. I don't know this guy. But I know that attitude. The attitude that would force him or propel him to say something like that. For starters, he might have been dirty macking on that podcast. Because sometimes dudes will dirty mac the fuck out of things. And by dirty macking, what I mean is that since he was talking to a woman, that might be one of the big things that was happening there, is that in order to impress a woman, a man will diss what other men like or what other men do. Right? This is in dirty macking, what you'll do is you'll drop some information that might try to turn the woman off about some guy that she's pursuing. Like in the old days, it would be, dropping the dime that this guy that this girl was interested in had another girlfriend, or that he was a pump and dump kind of guy, or he was broke and he was catching the bus, he still lives with his mama, all that kind of stuff. Then it sort of evolves that you're a nerd, you're into video games and comic books and pro wrestling. You can't be cool. You don't want to date a guy like that. He listens to Most Def. That kind of shit. That one was kind of personal. I took that one personal. Anyway, that might have been it. And, people talk. They do podcasts and things, and they say stuff sometimes that they don't mean, or he might have been trying to be funny, because he claims to be a comedian. I look at it from the perspective of, I don't really care what coastal elites think. But these people with these podcasts who live in Hollywood and do stupid movies and stuff, these people do not speak for the majority. Don't be insecure and get in your feelings about what these people think. There's folks saying that, how can WWE let this guy on the show after all these things that he said? It's like, brother, it was 5 years ago. It was a while back. Even if it was 2 years ago, it was still a while back. And WWE is in business, multi-billions of dollars in business with Netflix. If Netflix needs them to promote this fucking guy, guess what? They're going to give him 30 seconds because it's not worth the headache that you have to deal with Netflix and the billions of dollars that you're going to get from them. It ain't worth the headache. So all these people who are like, I would have never done business with Tom Segura. If you getting paid what WWE is getting paid from Netflix, yes, you would. You take shit from people for a lot less money. Trust me. That guy and what he said about wrestling, irrelevant. Nick Khan and all those people do not care. Vince wouldn't have cared. Tony Khan probably does care, which is why whatever it is he was trying to do with AEW didn't work. But ultimately, who gives a shit about this guy? I read that thing and said, man, he's some Hollywood dude who probably thinks that, high art is fart jokes and Seth Rogen movies. Like, all these people their conception of high art is not really like the best movies. It's just kind of movies in general. Like, you do movies. I'm in movies. It's like, yeah, your movies are like Pineapple Express, though. Like your movies are like Hot Tub Time Machine or something like that. Like, these are not The Godfather. It ain't Casino. It's like some sort of cinematic masterpiece. But you could be insecure if you want and be upset about this thing. I don't care. Personally, it wasn't until it was brought to my attention that I even remembered this guy, and I still didn't even remember what he had done, like in terms of who he was. But I do remember that comment floating around because I remember like Dolph Ziggler going to the notes pad over it. Real insecure. Very weird. And him being a comedian also made it extra strange. But get over it. Now, from one side of the coast to the other, we got to talk about Vince Russo. Vince Russo puts out this statement. I'm not going to do a video on it. I'm just going to put it here, and people who hear it hear it. I'll make sure everybody follows the product from now on. Stop listening to every other video. So Vince Russo says, for over 15 years, I wrote weekly wrestling shows and monthly pay-per-views for 3 different major companies. One rule of thumb I incorporated was to try and be logical. What would happen if this was actually real? That was always followed up by an explanation in order for the audience to follow and understand. Today, there is no logic in wrestling. Week to week, very little makes sense. However, here's the greatest swerve of all. To today's audience, it doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, nothing matters. We're just going to chant "This is awesome, holy shit," and sing along with our cues. And that's all that matters. Some say the wrestling business has passed me by because I don't understand the absolute forgiving fandom, no matter how illogical the show gets. But the truth is, I took and still take great pride in being a writer, and this isn't writing. It's simply playing for pops. It's not good TV. It's simple and lazy booking. And looking at it, the real truth is, I passed wrestling by. I've grown up. I've lived. I've learned. And I just no longer allow myself to settle for mediocrity in any way, shape, or form. I have 8 months left of watching the WWE. Nobody has lost my loyalty like they have. Why? Because as a fan, I am not going to allow you to insult my intelligence. I'm going to hold you accountable, just like I expected to be held accountable when I had the pencil. One thing I never did was to take advantage of my audience. I worked my arse off every single viewer we had. We know that there's some obvious lies here, okay? I mean, just obvious lies. Vince Russo wrote in his book that he did not care about pay-per-views. He only cared about TV ratings. So the idea that he wrote his ass off for every single viewer is false. He said out of his own mouth he didn't care about, well, out of his own pencil, a typewriter, computer, notepad, or wherever he wrote this goddamn book in, that he didn't care about pay-per-view buy rates. So that's a huge part of the business he didn't give a fuck about. Now, let's talk about another one of these obvious lies. He says that he always tried to make sure what would happen if this was actually real. He put somebody's meemaw in a cage, right? Would you do that if it was actually real? If this was actually real, would a match involve a piñata? If this was actually real, would you have girls in cages dancing? If this was actually real, Vince Russo wouldn't be anywhere involved in it, and yet he put himself in the middle of every single storyline once he got the opportunity to. He was all over WCW. He was all over TNA. And he started having this delusional shit about how he was one of the better performers in the entire company. Just absolute insanity. If this were real. For starters, it's not real, and you're the first person to say that. You're the person who talks about how it's fucking fake, bro. It ain't real, bro. Now you're talking about, well, if it were real. Come on, make up your mind. Make up your mind. Look, I have torn apart Vince Russo again and again and again. The guy, he's an idea man, right? He comes up with these wacky ideas. He can't write for shit, but and he's never finished a story and it was good. So the idea that he is some genius writer, like what great angle did he write from beginning to end? His angle seemed to go on forever until it was either rebooted or dropped. I can't think of any great angle that Vince Russo came up with. Other people came up with characters and different things for him to do, or to write. I just can't think of anything from scratch that Vince Russo came up with. And all the ideas that he put in his book, was just how Vince Russo, how WCW nearly killed Vince Russo, or whatever. Ideas like bitch slap were some of the worst ideas in the world. Top tier shitty ideas. Now, I said all that to say Vince Russo is 100%, well, not even 100%, I would say 70% correct about what's going on in pro wrestling right now. Now, here's the thing that people need to realize. This came out, Saturday night's main event had just occurred. And what happened is the Bronson Reed joined Seth Rollins. And everybody remembered all the tsunami splashes that Seth Rollins took from Bronson Reed. Everybody remembered that. And everybody jumped online and said, what about this? Well, like, this wasn't some kind of special insight that you had to be in the business to get. What about all of this? This is so much. You missed the details of Punk taking credit for Bronson Reed's ankle being broken. And you also don't understand that when you do a swerve, like a guy who was feuding with another guy, all of a sudden they're working together, that has to be explained. Okay? They're not going to explain it immediately, but it has to be explained. Now, they've had this episode of Raw now, and I wanted to give them that opportunity to explain it on Raw. And they didn't. Like, the explanation, if there was an explanation, it went right by me. I didn't get an explanation. I didn't understand why Bronson Reed all of a sudden is friends with Seth Rollins. That didn't make sense. But ultimately, when you do write stories and you do have sudden changes and stuff like this, those things, need to be rolled out over time. Now, another thing that he said here is he talked about the fans. He has a really big problem with the audience. If the audience is having too much fun, for some reason, Vince Russo doesn't like it. I don't understand that. He did, a week or so ago, where he did this laundry list of things that you are mark if. I guess he forgot the fact that you are absolutely a mark if you write yourself into the TV show and then write yourself to be the world champion on the TV show. How is that? You're the ultimate mark. So that's also why I don't really listen to Vince Russo. He calls other people marks while being a mark, which is very weird. Especially a mark for himself. But he seems to hate that the audience has fun. I don't like the dork audience either. Right? The people who sing and boo at the same talent, that's just strange. But what we're talking about here is an evolution of the audience. The audience has evolved so much that they know that what's part of the show and what isn't. And they want to go to the show to have fun and engage with the product. And part of engaging with the product is saying la 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 with The Rock, yelling, and Stone Cold said so, with Stone Cold Steve Austin, or yelling rest in peace with The Undertaker or whatever. That's part of the show. Singing the theme songs is just another part of that. These guys here, if you're a wrestling fan, you hear these theme songs 2-3 times a week. And some of them, if you're a fan for 20 years, 10 years or whatever, you've been hearing these theme songs your entire life. Right? And you go to a concert, you're not going to sing the song if you go to the concert? Of course, because you know the fucking record, right? You're going to sing whatever song, You go to the Nas concert and he plays, Thief's Theme or Made You Look. You're going to sing the song because you know the fucking song. That's why you're there. That's just part of the evolution of the fan. Sometimes the dork audience who chants "This is awesome" before the match even starts, that's too much. The people who want to sing serenades to Bailey, that's weird. All right, there's some fans that are absolutely over the line. I don't think singing the songs is the problem, though. I don't think that's the issue. That's the concert element of the pro wrestling fan that has, taken over. Some of that soccer stuff that they do, the non sequitur chants, or I'm going to chant just to be chanting. That's a problem. I don't like that. Chants that break up the flow of the promos, the what chants. I don't like those. And, sometimes the audience can be annoying. I'm not really all that annoyed by the song singing. I am annoyed by how long that goes on. Right? Now WWE has started playing into it. So everybody's interest is 10 goddamn minutes so that you can sing the song. It happened on this show. Seth Rollins' entrance was as long as Undertaker's in like 2000, 99 or whatever. Because you got to let the people sing the woes. You got to give them a chance to sing in their woes. That's what they came for. It's like, nah. Sometimes you gotta get this thing. Gotta need to be more of a brisk pace here. But I thought it was real rich that Vince Russo, who has claimed to quit wrestling 100 times, is now claiming he's quitting again. And hopefully he's for real this time. Hopefully he's serious this time and he will quit. But what he's going to do, more than likely, is find a new job that's going to require for him to watch wrestling, and then he's going to complain about it for 15 years like he's been doing the entire time. Sports Key that pays me to watch the shows. I wouldn't take that. If somebody said to me, Mongo, I'll offer you some money, but you have to do something you absolutely don't want to do. Guess what? I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. That's the thing. If you hate it, and this Vince Russo has been negative about wrestling for 20 years. There has not been a Vince Russo piece that I've seen in decades that has said, this is great. This is really good. No matter how good the storyline is. I have never heard him say that it was good. He has been absolutely destroying everybody, whether it's TNA, AEW, WWE. He's hated everything. He hates all ideas that's not his own. Right? So the idea that he is some kind of fair voice on what's hot in wrestling is like, for starters, you're 60. So, and you've been detached from the business for so long, you can only say this might not have worked so well in 99. And that might be true, because I do think that there are things going on today in wrestling that would not have worked 20 years ago. There are gimmicks today, wrestlers today, that would not have worked 25 years ago. But it was 25 years ago. What did homie say in The Wire? The thing about the old days is they's the old days. Don't ask me about The Wire, because I didn't watch it, by the way. Let's talk about this show, though. Enough dilly-dallying. So Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman and their two henchmen, the Braun team, came out. Heyman said that Breakker is an attack dog. He's the future of the business. And he's going to be main eventing WrestleMania 45 to 50 something. I'm like, damn, brother got to wait 4 years to get a WrestleMania main event? That's pretty nutty. It's basically a dead-end job for Braun Breaker at this point. He can't move up faster than that. Shit, he can go stack boxes in Amazon and get a raise before then. Then Heyman moves on to Bronson Reed and says that Bronson Reed is a violent man in the PG era, and that WWE is scared of him, and so are the top guys are scared to face him. He says that the man was so desperate, he went after the top guy in the business. He went after Seth Rollins. And then he wanted the fans to acknowledge Seth Rollins as the visionary, the revolutionary, and blah, blah, blah. They did not fully explain why Bronson Reed and Seth Rollins are now friends. And that's a missed opportunity, but that's one of those things that not only Vince Russo, but so many of us has complained about, is they do these things and then they forget to tell you why this is happening. They're just going to hope that you didn't care and that you're not paying attention. Oh, it's cool, so it's all right. It's like you're telling a story. So things have to make sense, you know? You have to tie that loose end up. Seth Rollins got on the microphone, said that this faction is his vision of total control, total domination, and these championships are all about power, and he knows how to wield that power. He knows how he can control that power, the fate of these championships, and that is through the Money in the Bank. I cringed at the idea of Seth Rollins winning Money in the Bank. Absolute cringe. It's got my stomach doing moonsaults right now as we speak. Sami Zayn had some stuff later. Let's skip all that because who cares? So let's get into the main event here. Sami Zayn versus Seth freaking Rollins versus Finn Balor for a spot in the Money in the Bank ladder match. These guys worked very hard in this match. All three of these guys, they took it very seriously. The final stretch went pretty hard. You know, Seth Rollins is in the ring. He gets hit with a haluva kick by Braun Breaker. Pulls Sami Zayn from the ring. Jey Uso, who promised to help Sami Zayn earlier, came out to help him. He got took out by Braun Breaker. And then Dominic Mysterio, of course, best friends forever with Finn Balor, and the Judgment Day, slid a chair into the ring. That didn't work, and Seth Rollins instead stomped Finn Balor's head onto the chair. And Seth Rollins, of course, now goes to Money in the Bank. And then, of course, CM Punk, he shows up for the last 30 seconds of the show to give Seth Rollins a GTS and run away from the Braun gang. I got to tell you, brothers, the guys worked very hard in this match. I don't know where they're going with this Karrion Kross, Sami Zayn thing. Karrion Kross is just like, Sami, you're never going to be the world champion, right? And Sami was very upset about that. But, call his bluff. Call his bluff, for God's sake. They're really building up slowly but surely this Sami Zayn thing, but it's taking forever. It's forever. And the Finn Balor Judgment Day stuff, that's enough's enough, right? I complained, I don't know how long, about this Judgment Day stuff. Enough is enough. Sometimes you have to actually pay off things. This should have been we should be beyond the boiling point when it comes to Judgment Day's breakup. Enough. You got Finn Balor trying to, I'm just going to go into this right now. You got Finn Balor trying to break up Liv Morgan and Dominic Mysterio. He brought in Roxanne Perez into the Judgment Day, and she immediately starts trying to seduce Dominic with chicken nuggets and back rubs. And she speaks Spanish. So, they got that thing going on, right? Roxanne speaks Spanish. Dominic speaks Spanish. Liv does not speak Spanish. So, you got that. As Roxanne has bringing him some nuggets, Liv Morgan shows up, sees him getting his shoulders rubbed by Roxanne, and she's upset about this, of course, and Raquel is snitching, talking out of school, talking outside the clubhouse, telling Liv everything that's been going on about Dominic and Roxanne and these chicken nuggets. Enough with these fucking chicken nuggets. I love them too, but goddamn. Unless he's going to get some kind of sponsorship. Enough. Carlito told him he got to stop trying to eat Roxanne's nuggets, which is kinky. It's kind of kinky, brother. Okay, but again, we've been doing this slow but sure Judgment Day thing. It's been a long time, and it has not been as entertaining as it has sounded. Most of this has just been pedestrian shit, and it's been going on for a really long time. really long time. I'm not a fan. Enough's enough. But Seth Rollins is now in the Money in the Bank, and Finn Balor is going to be mad at Dominic Mysterio again. But hey, he's been mad at Dominic for over a year now. So what difference does it make? They've been mad at each other since 2023, I think. Since, when did Rhea and Damian Priestley I know it was last year, but they were arguing before then. Like, it took them about 8 months to get not Dominic, but Rhea and Damian Priest out of the goddamn Judgment Day. So I'm pretty sure the crack started in 2022. Sheesh. But, all right. So Seth Rollins is in the Money in the Bank. Who else is in the Money in the Bank? Well, Penta. So we got Penta, Dragon Lee, and Chad Gable in the other Money in the Bank qualifier. And Penta tried to murder Chad Gable. We might need to return to the Power Driver ban. Somehow, Dragon Lee is on Penta's back. And Chad Gable is in an underhook Power Driver position. And Penta just sits down with both of them. And Chad Gable's neck folds like an old book. And he just holds his head, but he's back up seconds later to show that he's not dead. And I have to give the guy credit for not dying and for his neck not being broken. But he should probably still go to a doctor because that was a very, very ugly landing. It didn't look healthy for anybody involved, I gotta say. Chad Gable went outside the ring, picked a fight with El Hijo del Vikingo, who was sitting at ringside. Dragon Lee dived through the ropes and absolutely destroyed Penta and took down the desk and the whole 9 yards. Chad Gable did a double German suplex. I mean, these guys were throwing everything at each other. Vikingo attacked Chad Gable from behind, which led to Penta hitting the Canadian Destroyer on Dragon Lee. Dragon Lee fell out of the ring, and then Penta used the Penta Driver on Chad Gable to win the match. So Penta is in the Money in the Bank. And, if I wasn't so certain that Seth Rollins was going to win it, which he absolutely should not, I definitely think Penta probably should consider it. I think you really should consider it when it comes to Penta. He's so over. He's selling merchandise. Should he be world champion? Probably not. At least not right now. But you don't have to cash in Money in the Bank right now. In 8 or 9 months, Penta could be the top guy in the company, especially on Raw. Top babyface? Absolutely. On Raw. And especially if they're going to do a big show in Mexico sometime soon, now that they own AAA, you could have Penta use Money in the Bank at, let's say, Triple Mania. Wouldn't that rule ass if Penta has the Money in the Bank and he challenges the World Heavyweight Champion, or maybe even Cody Rhodes at Triple Mania? Wouldn't that be fucking cool? Like, that would kick ass. Would they do that, though? Probably not. Probably not. And I'm thinking to myself, that would be the best usage of the Money in the Bank that we've seen in a really long time. It would be the equivalent of when Rob Van Dam used Money in the Bank at ECW One Night Stand. Especially if Seth Rollins is the world champion or something like that. If you have Penta say, I'm cashing in the Money in the Bank, but it's going to be at Triple Mania, fuck. You're talking about packing a building. Seth Rollins in Mexico? I don't think he's wrestled in Mexico ever. That could be a big fucking match. If you wanted to do that. That's if you wanted to be creative. Now, you don't have to put the belt on Penta, but just that idea could be huge. It could be money. And if they do that, and when thinking about it, I would like some cash for this. I have student loans and substantial medical debt from other people who got sick. It's not me. So we really need some money over here. That would be great. But the match was great. It was one of the better triple threat matches. Dragon Lee, hey, they remembered he exists. They remembered he exists, but only when he needs to lose. I mean, the guy is invisible any other time. It would be nice if this guy could get some singles matches and get some singles action going here. I mean, Dominic Mysterio is walking around with an Intercontinental title that nobody's trying to challenge for, and you got Dragon Lee right here. I mean, come on. What do I have to put 2 and 2 together? Come on. Chad Gable had a big problem with El Hijo del Vikingo getting his business. And they actually had a bit of a conversation backstage. This was after, Vikingo kicked his ass. And Vikingo stretched his English by saying he's going to see him at Worlds Collide. And then the graphic came out. And the graphic announced El Hijo del Vikingo versus Chad Gable for the AAA Mega Championship. And everybody who watches AAA, myself included, was like, hey, wait a second. Vikingo isn't the AAA Mega Champion. Why would you announce... Oh, you're spoiling the TV taping. Huh. Alberto's losing. Alberto's going to lose. All right. That's one way of telling us that. Shit. That's one way of getting the news out there. We're just going to pretend that he's already the champion. All right. So for the purposes of the match has not happened yet. It's in 5 days. So hopefully Vikingo doesn't have a stroke or an aneurysm, don't get hit by a bus or something like that. In 5 days, he's going to be the mega champion, and Alberto's going to need to find a new job. People will rejoice at that. I thought it was pretty callous on their part, especially since the fans have been watching this stuff for a long time, only to have this match spoiled. I mean, people pretty much knew that Alberto was going to lose because Worlds Collide is the very next weekend. So people kind of had a feeling that Alberto was going to lose. But just telling people like 5 daes before the show, yeah, Alberto's going to lose. Don't even worry about it. It's pretty crazy. That's nuts. Damn, TKO, boy, they don't give a fuck about nothing, do they? Nothing's sacred. You don't even, see, the crazy thing is you don't even have to announce this match as a title match. Nobody knows who El Hijo del Vikingo is. So it's not like this, is elevating the match at all. You just spoiled it for no good reason. You just ruined the AAA fans' experience. That's tough. TUFF. I don't want to talk about Rusev versus Akira Tozawa because Rusev took a bump for Tozawa, which is embarrassing. I do want to say that Sheamus came out there to back Rusev down after he refused to let go of the accolade. So, just in case you wanted to know who won. And Rusev, Sheamus, he had something going on with his eyes where he had like some puffiness in his eyes. I think Rusev, I think you could take him. He looks allergic to you. You might be able to take him. The War Raiders were hanging out with these dull fellows, and then they had a triple threat tag team championship match with the New Day won. I didn't care about this. Why is one of the Creed brothers looking like he eat ducks? He's like wearing like a jean jacket and a bandana. He looking really Jimmy Jack Floyd. Why is he doing this? I thought they were like American Gladiators. Anyway, there's no way to get into this. New Day is the only team in this division. The War Raiders couldn't be more boring, and the Creed brothers couldn't be less focused in terms of direction. All very much unfair, and this is all very unproductive. Liv Morgan mocked Io Sky and Kairi. She mocked Kairi for losing Money in the Bank qualifier, and then said she's going to win her Money in the Bank qualifier and cash in on Io. And then Kairi challenged Liv Morgan to a match. And then I noticed that Kairi is so tiny, she's even smaller than Liv Morgan. Do you know how small you have to be smaller than Liv Morgan? Liv Morgan is like 5'2". How are these women getting so small? And they're smaller than humanly possible. Did Kairi shrink? I didn't think she was this goddamn small. So Liv Morgan versus Kairi Sane. They tried. It was okay. It wasn't the worst match in the world. It was okay. A fun little chokehold that Liv Morgan introduced in this match. I kind of liked it. Kairi Sane hit her with a spear, which I thought was pretty tough. I like Kairi Sane's spear. Her small body actually makes her spears look a little bit more devastating. Liv Morgan did a very, very shitty version of Tessa Blanchard's Magnum, which is a top rope code breaker, but she did it from the second rope. And then Tessa jumps out, Liv jumps up. So you have to basically walk into it when it comes to Liv. At this point, Raquel distracted the referee and Roxanne pushed Kairi Sane off the top rope. Liv goes for Oblivion. Kairi Sane counters it, rolls her up, and pins her. So Kairi Sane actually won a match. For God's sake, heavens above, Kairi Sane won a match. But this is all, of course, in service of likely a tag team championship match in order to get EO on the card for Money in the Bank. Likely going to be Kairi and EO versus Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. You know what? That's fine. It's fine. This match was okay. I didn't hate it. There was quite a few botches in it, which is natural at this point when it comes to these women's wrestlers, and especially somebody like Liv Morgan. So it's to be expected. Rhea Ripley had a vignette, reminded us that this is her first ladder match in her entire career, which also reminded us that she hasn't been around that long. She's been around about 10 years, huh? This is her first ladder match? I think she did sign to WWE in 2015 or something like that. Because I think she was in NXT UK for 2016 and 2017. I think it's been about 10 years. And she's never worked a ladder match before. It's very interesting. Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch. Oh boy. Let's truncate this. Lyra Valkyria says that she usually doesn't have anything to prove after she beats people. But Becky Lynch didn't have any shame after she lost. And Lyra herself didn't get any satisfaction from beating Becky Lynch because Becky Lynch is delusional. And since she made fun of her fiance, she's going to hurt Becky Lynch in their next match, which is going to be at Money in the Bank. It was announced for no good reason. Becky Lynch came out and said she was done with Lyra Valkyria until Lyra Valkyria made it personal. Lyra Valkyria then basically made it personal again by saying that her hot husband, talking about Becky's hot husband, is the only thing good about her. This was after Becky Lynch dissed Lyra Valkyria's very funny looking boyfriend. Then Becky Lynch says that she wants to put a stipulation on their championship match that if Bex loses, she will never challenge for that championship again. But if she wins, which she plans to win, she wants Lyra Valkyria to actually raise her hand in victory. Lyra Valkyria says, yeah, I've never had a problem raising the hand of the woman who is better than me, but that's never been you. And that's the idea going into this match. Here's the thing. Lyra Valkyria is getting very cocky. She's super confident. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's a thing. That character is pretty goddamn confident. And you know what? I'm not mad at it because there's only so long you can play the I'm just so happy to be here card. And now she's been a champion for almost 6 months. Yeah, she should be confident now. She shouldn't be cocky and just thinking she could. She said she could beat Becky Lynch with her eyes closed. Like, that's crazy. You know, like, that's just insane stuff to say to somebody who's like the main event of WrestleMania. And you're like, I could beat you with my eyes closed. Like, get bent. Nobody believes that shit. Let's have a blindfold match to prove it. Actually, no. Let's not have a blindfold match. Well, unless the blindfold is going to be me. Maybe I'll need to be blindfolded for that fucking match. Anyway, they're going to have another match at Money in the Bank. No special stipulation outside of I'll never challenge for the title again and you got to raise my hand. Which is, you know, a humiliation ritual, I'm guessing. But I fully expect that Becky Lynch is going to win the title. Whenever somebody says I'll never challenge for the title again, they almost always win. You know, either that or they cost the person the title the next time they defend it. So I'm going to guess that Becky Lynch is going to go ahead and win the title this time. And I'm not against it. You know, if Lyra can't get over at this point, after all the stuff that they've done, this really long stretch as champion, the WrestleMania Tag Team Championship thing. I mean, she won 2 championships in less than 6 months. And beat Becky Lynch clean in the middle of the ring. If she can't get over after that, then you're just wasting everybody's time. And part of this is going to be her ability to cut promos. And she seemed to be comfortable talking. They just don't have anything for her to say. And of course, she's still a bird. So, well, technically, is she still a bird? She's supposed to be like a Valkyrie, the chooser of the slain, I guess. But no, she's Celtic. So it's the Morrigan, I think they said it was, which is basically like a Celtic Valkyrie. I don't know off the top of my head. Whatever it is, she got fucking wings. And some people are weirded out by the wings. Some people like the wings. The wings are very controversial. But here's the thing about the wings. People are talking about it. I would much rather you have the wings and people complain about it than you not have the wings and you just out there with your skinny ass arms and average face and just be average girl. Do the wings. Fuck it. If people hate the wings, then at least they're talking about the goddamn wings. You know, it makes you stand out. So have fun with the wings. All right. So this was Monday Night Raw. Nothing spectacular happened. They spent over 10 minutes introducing Seth Rollins' stable, but there's no name to the stable. And the whole point of the stable is Seth Rollins, who was already a top guy and has been a top guy since 2015, 2016, is going to win the Money in the Bank so he can remain a top guy. It's hard to tell me that the guy's the future of the business when he's already been in the business for 10 years. He's already main evented WrestleMania multiple times. He's already been in all of the top spots that you could possibly think of. He's won every conceivable championship. How is this guy still in the business of being the future? Shouldn't he be the modern day? Like when they put together the evolution angle, right? Triple H was like the now. And Orton was the future, right? Because it was the idea that when Triple H is done, Orton's going to take over. But they're saying, like, Brian Breaker is the future, but also Seth Rollins is also the future. Like, it can't be, unless we're, like, dealing with some Fantastic Four, type shit. There's only one future. There's only one future here. But, whatever. Look. They're not thinking this thing through, which is unfortunate. But this is going to be the top angle on the show. They need to try a little bit harder. Yes, I do know that Gunther and Jey Uso did a thing in the ring, but who cares? Like, who gives a shit? I'm tired of Jey Uso and Gunther. I really am. I don't care what they have to say to each other. It was not special. Nothing mattered. They've had 100 matches. They're going to have more. There's no stipulation on this match, which is what you think. How many singles matches? They've had 4 singles matches. They're going to have another singles match with no stipulation. Like, no 2 out of 3 falls, so Gunther can't, have any excuse when he loses. No I quit, no last man standing, nothing like that. It's dumb. Like, this is the opportunity for you to really establish Jey as a champion. And this match is happening after Money in the Bank, by the way. So you have an opportunity. And I think a 2 out of 3 falls match probably would have been the best option. Because then Gunther could say, you can't get any cheap wins. You got to beat me twice in one night. Like that would be fun. And then you could also get Gunther to pin Jey and, that sort of thing. There's more you could do there. I'm not suggesting that, the next option is like an Iron Man match, and who the hell wants to see that? But there needs to be some spice to this thing. The idea we're just going to do another singles match between Gunther and Jey Uso is like, ugh. I didn't want to see the ones that we got. We got to see another one? It's the same fucking stipulation, just a different person is being the champion. Get real. The sooner we can get the belt off Jey and get some real main event guys, some real top guys in here, the sooner we can get back to guys like CM Punk actually being on the show and featured on the show and doing stuff on the show and wrestling matches on the show or cutting promos on the show or doing something on the show, we can be in a much better place. I get it. You don't want Punk to steal the thunder of Jey Uso and Sami Zayn. But if you're going to have him on this show, if you're going to have him as a featured talent, he needs to actually be featured at some point. He should have come out and cut a promo today. He should have cut a promo on this show. Instead of Heyman cutting a promo, introducing people we already know, which makes no sense. It should have been Punk calling these guys out. You know, it should have been Punk with a steel chair or a crowbar or something threatening to kill these guys. But that's not what we got. It should have been Punk stopping Seth Rollins from becoming a member of the Money in the Bank match. How about that? Remember the good old days where Stone Cold Steve Austin didn't want to see his opponents thrive? If The Rock was trying to win something, Steve Austin would interfere and give him a stunner to make sure he lost. You know, where he would hit a guy with a chair to make sure he didn't win. Now everybody's so polite. They wait until after the match. They call their shot 2-3 weeks ahead. There's no sense of urgency. You know, there's no surprise. There's no twist. There's nothing. These shows are absolutely boring shows. And boring is not good. It ain't good. You know, if you can look at the cage match or whatever and get the entirety of the show, then the show has failed. There's no reason to watch it. That's how I lived my life watching wrestling my entire childhood. If you can get a script of so-and-so beat so-and-so, so-and-so beat so-and-so, then why do you need to watch it? It's like if you go and see the end of a movie written on a blog site or something like that, you're not going to be interested in watching it. But if a bunch of stuff happened, now you feel like, I missed something. Something occurred. Or at least some excitement. Some things that make sense occurred. But no, we got CM Punk at the last 30 seconds because this is what we do now. Shut up and eat your gruel is what they're telling us. And no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to complain about it until it gets better. Because that's what I dealt with the entirety of my adult life. People complained and said this was bad, this sucked, this show was boring, blah, 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 blah. Now the shows are consistently boring. Consistently. And people are trying to act like that's not a bad thing. Or, it's better than it used to be. No, bad is actually better than boring, if we're being honest. All right, let's get out of here. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.
Old non-aggression. Once that lesson sets in, you'll see a session. But you got an affection for no progression. Regression, the best don't